guidance 2022. So who does these regulations affect? So they apply to health and social care workers who are employed in CQC regulated work involving face-to-face contact with service users. The regulations only apply to the first and second dose of the experimental drug and not to boosters. And it's interesting to note that in the guidance, it also makes reference to the flu vaccination. They said the flu vaccination is exempt at this stage. So from the guidance and reading between the lines, I think the flu vac is going to be the next one that they're going to start mandating. So question is, who is exempt from this mandate? So you are exempt if you do not have face-to-face contact with service users, like if you work in telephone triage. So someone who works in, for example, NHS 111. So there are clinical exemptions. So say you had the experimental drug and you experience myocarditis, or even may I add death, I'm being flippant here. But if you experience myocarditis following the first dose, in order to qualify for that exemption, the organization will refer you to occupational health for advice and recommendations. You can be exempt medically as well, and this is primarily for pregnancy. So if you're pregnant, you are exempt from having the experimental drug. However, 16 weeks after your baby is born, you can be fully vaccinated. If you're under 18, you're exempt. If you're on long-term sick, absence from work, for instance, you're sick, you have parental leave, maternity leave. And the final one, you are exempt if you are a participant in a clinical trial investigating COVID-19 vaccination. And in order to get that exemption, you have to produce an authorized letter, and that again needs to be placed on your file. The guidance talks about a 12-week grace period from where the regulations are made, that's on the 6th of January, to when the regulations come into force. So that will give workers time to decide to get vaccinated. So during this time, there are certain things your employers should be doing. They should be reviewing and update the privacy notices. And by that, they want to see and they want to hear about your private medical history. So they want to hear about your vaccination status. The employers will be asking you to confirm your status. And they really should be putting that in writing and set deadlines. And the question that we ask, is this request lawful and reasonable? And we're going to be asking that question from Kwame after the end of this small presentation. We have to recognize that vaccination status is health information and it is regarded as confidential. And it's also special category data for the purposes of data protection legislation. So think about the GDPR, which means that it must be used fairly and lawfully. So are they using it fairly when they're using it against you in order to remove you from your job? That is another question. Until your employees demonstrate that they can use it fairly and lawfully, they cannot expect to receive that information, because that is a need to know basis only. And it's something we'll discuss with Kwame later on. So in the guidance during this 12-week period, it says your employer should be having sensitive one-to-one conversations with empathy and respect. Now, if you are exempt, your employer will require evidence of this and keep it on record and under review. So if you experience myocarditis and a few years down the line, your symptoms resolve and you become healthier, they may consider giving you another dose of the experimental drug. Also, during this time, your employer should be developing a specific COVID-19 vaccination policy and procedure. So this is one of the things that you can ask your employer. May I see your COVID-19 vaccination policy and procedure? And it'd be interested to see how many say, here it is, because I've looked online and I cannot find, I looked in 2 organizations and I couldn't find that vaccination policy and procedure in any of those 2 organizations' policy files. Also, your employer should avoid taking formal action in regard to redeploying workers or reallocating duties until the regulations have received parliamentary approval. And the final area, just like to consider, is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion and Equality Act 2010. The Government of Health recognized that's a challenge. And in order to get around it, they say to employers, you sort it out, because this mandate is going against the Equality, Diversity, Inclusion and Equality Act. So the policy talks about converts, and it's interesting, they're using religious language. So they talk about grace period. They also talks about converts as well. So they say, in order to convert you from vaccine hesitancy to vaccine uptake, your employer should, according to the guidance, commence an awareness campaign. I'm surprised they didn't say crusade, but they said campaign. So they should be liaising, first of all, with staff side, get staff side on their side, on management side. So for support in encouraging workers to receive the experimental drug. You should be having one-to-one meetings with your line manager. Your line manager should be talking about the limitations of the redeployment into face-to-face roles and projects. And even though this meeting is called informal, your manager has, it says in the guidance, should keep detailed records of that conversation. So within the guidance, it talks about, I mentioned, consider your health if you're feeling the pressure of this conversion therapy or this engagement approach. And the guidance specifically talks about certain communities, and those communities is the BAME group, Black and minority ethnic groups, and faith groups, that specifically highlight them. And they suggest that these groups should have webinars, use high profile BAME individuals to convert people from vaccination hesitancy to vaccine uptake. So I just want to segue just a moment to talk about the Tuskegee study. Some of you may have heard of it, because there are some lessons that we can learn from the Tuskegee study. So I'm just giving like a little commercial break. Now, if we forget history, we will be prone to make the same mistake that our forefathers made. Now, starting in 1932, 600 African-American men from Alabama were enlisted to partake in a so-called scientific experiment on syphilis. It was called the Tuskegee study of untreated, not treated, untreated syphilis in the Negro male. And it was conducted by the United States Public Health Service, Public Health Department. And so what this study involved was blood tests, x-rays, spinal taps. And eventually when the people died, the men died and the people died from syphilis, autopsies of the subjects. So the goal of the study was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis in Black populations. but the subjects were unaware of this and were simply told they were receiving treatment for bad blood. Actually, they didn't receive any treatment at all. Even after the antibiotic penicillin was discovered as a safe and reliable cure for syphilis, the majority of men didn't receive it. So I can hear you question me, why have I mentioned this? Because the government is using the same techniques of engagement that were used by the Public Health Department in 1932. The American government used Eunice Verdell Rivers Laurie, an African-American nurse, to recruit and coordinate the Tuskegee experiment. In like manner, this British government is using similar approaches, in particular using faith leaders, prominent BME individuals. They're using faith premises, they're using mosques, they're using churches to convert vaccine hesitance to vaccine uptake. Your employers in this guidance are being told to use high profile and trusted voices. So this platform is open up to Seventh-day Adventist people, but also Christians as well. So within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, we have many eminent and high profile professionals who are just doing that. We have professors, consultants, scientists, doctors, specialists, religious leaders, all using their position to convert vaccine hesitancy to vaccine uptake. And the use of the word convert is not incidental. What is a convert? It's a person who has been persuaded to change their religious faith or other belief. So the government wants you to be converted in order to take up the vaccine. So let us not forget the experiments. And the Tuskegee study is just one of many experiments. Let's not forget the experiments from the past where they have experimented on vulnerable people and ethnic minorities. So your employers have been told to host a series of clinically led online dialogues using voices trusted by the community, who can help to engage Black communities. It's important to use an experienced facilitator with knowledge of the NHS systems and relationships with Black African and Black Caribbean NHS workforce and communities. So if you are from a BAME group and you choose not to take the experimental drug, then expect to see those people and hear those voices. So moving on quickly, let's look at key points that you will need to consider if you still do not want to take the experimental drug. One of the first things you need to do is understand your contract of employment. You need to understand what type it is. There are 4 types. There's permanent, fixed term, casual, and 0 hour. Most of the regulations pertain to those with substantive contracts. That is a permanent contract that is over 2 years employment by an NHS provider. The other types of contracts an employer can lawfully terminate. If that's not correct, Kwame will correct me. Yes, but they can lawfully terminate it if it's reached its end. So if you have a substantive contract of employment, then understand your rights, your responsibilities and duties. It goes without saying, do not rely on your employer to share all information with you regarding your contractual position and your rights. Seek your own independent legal advice. You know, the Bible tells us, it says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And it's not just a spiritual element, this is a practical element as well. Many people have approached me and I'm asking them, but what does your contract say? What does the policy say? And they just do not know. Our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. This is the time to get yourself educated about your contract of employment and seek legal advice. Another point linked to seeking legal advice is recognize that even though you've been paying all those dues for many, many years, recognize that your staff side rep, your trade union works with HR and management. More likely, if your trade union supports the experimental drug, they will encourage compliance despite stating that they do not support mandates. However, be that as it is, unions do have legal departments which may be able to provide impartial advice. The VCOD document states that there should be informal meeting. I mentioned it earlier. By informal meeting, it means that they are not evoking the disciplinary procedure or redundancy or redeployment policies. So this meeting will be with your line manager. Please note, this is not a passing conversation in the corridor. Oh, hi, Sarah, how are you getting on? By the way, have you had your vaccination, COVID vaccination? No, it is not a passing conversation in the corridor. You should be given notice of this meeting so that you can have a support person with you. The guidance states that the manager should take detailed records of the meeting. I strongly recommend not relying on a copy of your manager's notes because they'll be biased in favor of their side. Take your own notes. Indeed, I would also inform management that you will be recording the meeting. So record the meeting and take your own notes, just in case the recording gets messed up. That's happened to me before. And there's also an interesting tip. As you write your notes, it gives you time to think about how to respond to any question. I would also recommend that you pray before the meeting, you and your support, pray before the meeting. And when you are actually in the meeting, sitting down, you say, look, I would like to pray for this meeting as well. So let's consider Esther. When she was about to go before the king, what did she do? She fasted and prayed for 3 days, and she got other people to fast with her. Now, if we are really serious about anything, we need to pray and fast. Remember, Jesus said in Matthew 17 about the disciples who were unable to cast out a demon. He said, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, and what's happening here is a massive mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Howbeit, however, this kind goeth not out but by prayer and fasting. Remember, Jesus did not say if you fast, but when you fast. So pray and fast if you're serious about this. Okay. So in the meeting, what you can do, you can present a notice to your CEO, the chief executive of the organization. So you're not presenting it to your manager, you present it to the CEO. And we're going to discuss later the difference between a notice and a letter. So there are many notices available online, but this one is particularly tailored for the NHS and the UK mandates. And if you want it, you can get it from the AHR. You can email the AHR and get it. And some of the questions, it says, I'm not going to go through all of it because we haven't got time. Have you investigated, researched, and prepared a risk assessment that shows an unvaccinated person is a threat and more for risk than a vaccinated person being at the workplace? So it goes on. It asks the chief executive some questions, and they need to respond. And it's got these 10 points, and there's some other points you can add as well. It says, once I've received the above information in full, and I'm satisfied that there is no threat to my health, I'll be happy to consider your offer to receive the treatment, but with certain conditions. And then you set out the conditions as well. And here's another one. And this letter is more for a generic one. and it needs to be changed into a notice. Again, it needs to be addressed to the CEO, not your manager, because remember, the manager is just the monkey. You need to go to the organ grinder. That's the CEO. Everything stops with the CEO. You would need to go through the letter, change it into a notice, line by line, word by word, delete or amend according to your particular circumstances. So let's move on quickly. I don't want to take up too much time. Yep. Request a hard copy and an e-copy of the COVID-19 vaccination policy and procedure. Question elements of it that you do not agree with or discuss with your legal representative. Please note that a formal process, and that's not stated in the guidance what a formal process is, but they say a formal process will not commence but until after the 1st of April 2022. So 2 points: the employer should not be invoking disciplinary or asking giving you a resignation letter until after the 1st of April 2022, when or if the mandate becomes law. Secondary, disciplinary procedure commences after the 1st of April. I suspect that if the employer wants to retain your skills, knowledge, and experience, they will do everything within their power to redeploy you. If not, they will use this as an opportunity to get rid. Again, request a copy of the local redeployment policy. And I just want to mention a few policies which may be useful for you. All CQC, all Care Quality Commission healthcare organizations are policy heavy. They have policies for everything. So I took a quick look at Leicester Partnership Trust policy. I used to be employed by Leicestershire Partnership. That's why I looked at it. And King's College Hospital. And I used King's College Hospital because I think it was, that was the hospital where the doctor spoke up against the mandates. So I looked at those two hospitals and some of their policies. All these policies are public documents and should be available. However, as an employee, you should have access to the policies through the internet. So disciplinary policy and conduct, hopefully you do not get to that stage, all right? But if your employer is disregarding everything that you're saying and still trying to force you down that process, get to know the disciplinary policy. Another one, which is useful, attendance management and well-being policy. We just call it the sick policy. If you're feeling pressure, yes, if you, take time out. Yeah. And this is another policy which I found very, very interesting. This is trust management approval of clinical research policy. And this is from Leicestershire Partnership Trust. And Leicestershire Partnership Trust, is there anyone from Leicester? You can put your hand up later. This is helpful for you because it's about conducting and hosting and collaborating in research. So if we look at it, in that policy, if you read it, the same standards they are applying for conducting, collaborating in research, they are not applying to their own staff. So essentially, they are contravening their own policy. So it says there, protect the safety, dignity, and rights and well-being of all patients and staff involved in clinical and non-clinical research. So if your organization is a teaching and research provider, if they have a research policy, look at it and use it in your notice as well. So we're looking at the key points. An important one is do not be afraid. Yeah, remain calm. Indeed, as Christians, we should have no fear. In the Bible, I think it tells us 365 times, do not be afraid. fear not. So you've got one scripture for every day of the year, a Bible verse to support and encourage you. I loved 1 Timothy 1:7, and I always repeat it. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. Another useful scripture is, fear not, for I am with you, be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. In the last conference, Andre reminded us that we are not on the defense, but on the offensive. So if you didn't see that conference, it's available on YouTube, go back, watch it. He highlighted to us, and the Bible reiterates it, we have power. God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of power. It is for the employers to demonstrate that they can legally change your contract. They cannot do so unless we allow them. Because we are ignorant of our rights, we are ignorant of the scope of our contracts, our employer undermines our rights and getaways with many things. And Kwame will speak more about that. So please do not be afraid. Saying that, remember that this is spiritual warfare. We're not wrestling with our line manager or their manager. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And this is pure wickedness that is happening with this experimental drug. We have to put on the whole armor of God. We talked about prayer and fasting earlier. So we need the support and protection of God. So if your manager requests something from you, never say no, I'm not going to give it. Do not refuse a reasonable request from your manager. However, the acceptance is a request. The acceptance of a request is based on conditions. Yes, I'm able to provide it for you, but you need to show me the COVID and vaccination policy. Yes, but you need to clarify to me, how does this fit in with the Equality Act? If your manager requests anything from you, then they need to put it in writing and sign it. Obtain everything in writing, because if it gets to the point where they dismiss you or constructive dismissal, then you have all the evidence there. So for instance, a passing conversation in the corridor will not hold weight if you have to go to industrial tribunal. Now, if the process is causing you undue pressure or stress, you're thinking about it all the time, if you cannot focus on your work, if all of a sudden, tears well up in your eyes, have you been in that situation? I've been in that situation before. Take time out. Spend time, as Andre said, locked in with Christ. So I'm going to fly through these quickly because I don't want to take up all the time, because I want you to have the opportunity to ask questions. So from 1st of April, no face-to-face contact with service user for the MVAC staff, except those with exemptions. After 1st of April, then you can have redeployment opportunities. What else? Follow redeployment policy your employer should provide. If you accept permanent redeployment, please note that it has the potential to impact upon your pay and pension, especially if you go down into a lower paid job. So it may be useful if you're coming up to retirement age and you think, oh, I've had enough of this. Negotiate pension protection. Oh, sorry. If you're going to take redeployment, it's good to negotiate pension protection at the higher salary and pay protection, and they usually give that for about 2 to 5 years. If you're clinical staff and you're moving to a non-clinical role, maintaining your professional registration will also be impacted. I know when I was every 3 years, I had to go through that revalidation process. And if you're not having face-to-face contact with service users, that may be even more challenging. If there are no suitable roles options, your employer may offer lower payroll, who may offer you redundancy, settlement, compromise agreement, or resignations. So settlement agreements may be proposed prior to undertaking any other formal process. And what settlement agreements is, they used to be called compromise agreements. They usually include some form of payment to the employee by the employer, and may also include a reference. There is no guarantee that you will get a settlement agreement, even though your employers would like to do so, as NHS organisations are required to obtain permission or approval from Her Majesty Treasuries before they can give you one. So as I come to the close, I want to quickly share a Bible story about the children of Israel. So when they left Egypt, they got to the Red Sea. There was mountain on the right side, there was mountain on the left. In front of them, we know that it was a Red Sea. Behind them, they saw in the distance the dust of Pharaoh's horses, galloping hooves, fast approaching. Now, Pharaoh was ready to enslave them. To all intents and purposes, those people who were in that situation appeared to be trapped. To the children of Israel, they are trapped. To Pharaoh, they are trapped. Even Moses recognizes they are trapped. And it says in the Bible that Pharaoh says about the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land. The wilderness has shut them in. Entangled in the land, the wilderness has shut them in. For many of you listening, tuning into this workshop, you may feel that you're entangled in the land. You may feel that the wilderness, this situation, this unlawful mandate has shut you in, that there's no way out. But man's extremity is God's opportunity. Man's extremity is God's opportunity. This situation is an opportunity to do those things that deep down you've always desired to do. We know the end to the story. God made a dry path through the sea for the Israelites to walk through. It says, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. The Lord will fight for you and you shall hold your peace. So as I come to the close of this presentation, I have a question for you. And I would like you to think about it. What do you see as success in this situation? What does success look like for you? I can see, you probably may see more possible outcomes, but I can see 5 outcomes. So one of them is you continue with your job unjabbed. You continue with your job, but you have been converted and you're jabbed. You can be reemployed to another job where you do not get face-to-face contact with service users. You may even have pay protection for a certain time, but you know eventually that that pay protection will drop off as well. Your employers may be very gracious and give you a settlement or compromise agreement. That could be redundancy, early retirement with pension protection. Or I know this is happening. Some people are choosing to resign and walk away and look for another job. But one of the things that resonates with me and rings in my head is what Dr. Chidi said at the first conference. He said, you have seen, even though the government may back down, even though you may move to another place where you can continue working without being jabbed, you have seen the whites of their eyes and you've seen the sharpness of their teeth. So this government there's an agenda out there to get everyone vaccinated. As an association, we want to support those people from health and social care who may be thinking about settlement and doing other things, or resigning and doing other things. Last conference, we talked about missions in the city, working and doing God's work. And as an association, we can work with the two last groups. So this is a picture of me. This was in June 2011. I chose to take voluntary redundancy. I took a package, and this was my director. We got on very, very well, and I negotiated with her. I said I wanted to take redundancy. I had to wait 18 months to get it, but eventually I got it. And June 2011 was one of the happiest times of my life. Look, I was so happy. I couldn't wait to leave the work that I was doing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had the redundancy package. It was only going to last a certain time, but I took the time out. I took a year out, and I became locked down with Christ during that time. That's a date that I will never forget, because it was a date that set me free to think about what my purpose in life was and what was God's purpose for me. And as an association, we want to support those who want to repurpose their skills, repurpose their knowledge and experience to work doing God's business. And thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Lucille. That, I'm sure everyone can agree, that was a very informative and very comprehensive presentation. And I'm sure that many people appreciate what you've just shared. I've learned some things that have been new, but I see it as an arsenal. I see that you've provided quite a number of tools. So as time is going on, I can see the hands are starting to come up. And what we're going to do now, with the help of my colleagues from True Temperance International, Shirlene and Sharon, we are now going to accept hands that have gone up. I can see a few more. And please forgive us if we're not doing it in order, but if you please place your hands up, we will definitely endeavor to answer your questions. Kwame, I would like to know if you want to speak to anything that Lucille has mentioned. Otherwise, myself and my colleagues, we are going to start taking questions from the audience. And may I remind you, please, that it is not, we're not taking your hands to make a particular statement. We're not taking your hands to make a particular statement that is political. Like I said before, this is not a political forum. But if you find yourself in the situation that Lucille described and alluded to in her presentation, then we are more than happy to take a question from you, and we can hopefully answer your question. So, yes. Kwame, if you want to speak to anything that Lucille has mentioned, meanwhile, myself, Shirlene, I would even ask Laverne and Sharon, we're going to be taking the hands in order, and please, this is a Christian platform and we welcome your questions to us. Kwame, do you want to speak to anything that has been mentioned? Otherwise, yes, we're going to start taking hands.
Yes, there are. I just wanted to address a few of the issues that Lucille has mentioned in respect to the VCOD. It's very interesting, the language that the VCOD uses. And if we go, Lucille, could you just read the first bit of the VCOD for me, please, where it made mention of authorized vaccine? Must have one of authorized vaccine, I think by the 12th of February, you made mention of?
Yes, I think that is correct. They have to have an authorized vaccination, a COVID-19 vaccination. So if someone's coming from overseas, right, and it's not authorized, then they will have to be vaccinated again.
That's really interesting. Is the vaccine itself authorized? I'm amazed that no one has picked up on this yet, because the vaccine is not authorized. It has what is termed as emergency use authorization. That's not an authorized vaccine. And we go if we look at the FDA's emergency use authorization as to what it says an emergency use authorization is a mechanism to facilitate the availability and use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during public health emergencies, such as the current COVID-19 pandemic. Under an EUA, which is the shortening for emergency use authorization, it may allow the use of unapproved medical products. So in the FDA's own definition, it tells you it's not authorized. So the government, whether knowingly or unknowingly, is being disingenuous, because they're asking, and it is asking, to participate in an experiment by using flowery language in order to coerce individuals into taking part in an experiment. Funny enough, if we look at the legislation that the government is also using, even their very own legislation tells you that. The Health and Social Care Act that they are relying on for this legislation clearly use the same language: to receive a dose of an authorized vaccine. None of these vaccines, Pfizer, Moderna, whichever ones, Johnson & Johnson, none of them are authorized. So that alone tells us that we are at liberty to be non-compliant, because their very own legislation protects us from participating in the experiment. So if we look, and I mean, just that in itself alone is a defense to anything that they may seek to mandate. And the legislation also tells you that you cannot mandate something that is in an experimental phase, and this is clearly an experiment. So legally, it cannot be mandated, which is why they keep saying you have a choice. So in the end, it boils down to the individual making that choice to do it, irrespective of whatever coercive language they want to use. It is us who is making the choice to do it. And if we stand on our rights, when we know our rights, of course, then they won't be able to get away with this. And even in the event that it should come down to it, even those, Lucille made mention of unfair dismissal, even those who have less than 2 years service also has a claim for unfair dismissal. But we can get onto those things later on. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Kwame. We're now going to start taking questions from our audience. And can I just encourage my colleagues, my panelists and co-host colleagues, to please put your camera on when you're speaking to our audience. It's always nice to see a friendly face at the end of the camera. Yes, please. I encourage the panelists to show your face, Laverne, Kwame, Lucille, and myself. So Bianca, I am going to ask that you unmute as we start taking questions.
Hi, greetings everyone. I just have a quick question. What would be my solution if so I was working as a healthcare assistant. I was working at the organization for 1 year. I don't know if the length of time of how long you've worked somewhere makes a difference. I had until the 10th of November to have been double vaccinated, which I didn't, so they let me go. some of the steps that your colleague has went through with me. So I had a letter on the 5th of October asking me if I wanted to take the vaccine. And then I had a meeting at some point towards the end of October or the beginning of November. And I still said, I didn't want to have the vaccine. And then the 10th, I think, I think Boris said the 10th. So the 10th of November was my last day. They've sent me my letter to say I'm no longer part of the organisation, which brings me to today. So I just wanted to know, is it too late for me, or what can I do in my situation? Because I'm not like the NHS staff where they've got until April to kind of sort themselves out. My time has already lapsed since last year. So I just wanted to know what kind of my options are. My workplace have gone through the steps that your colleague spoke about. So all of that's been done. So I just want to know what next is for me, or is this kind of like the end of the road?
Brother Kwame, can you please answer that, and please put your camera on when you are.
That's it.
Thank you.
Can you remind what date of your dismissal?
The date of my dismissal was the 10th of November. I think Boris said it was the 11th, but I think we all had to be vaccinated by the 10th. So yeah, the 10th was the last day.
And you said that they have already provided you with a dismissal letter, so they have entirely dismissed you now, right?
Yeah, it didn't say dismissal on the letter, but it just says, I am writing to inform you that your employment with my employer has ended on the 10th of November 2021. So yeah, they've not used the word dismissal, but they've just said my employment has ended, and I haven't worked for them since that day. I'm not even allowed to the workplace. I'm not even allowed on the premises because,
Of employment.
Say that again, sorry.
You have a contract of employment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was only working there a year, so I don't know if that's, I don't know.
Doesn't really matter under the Employment Rights Act 9.
Okay.
Any employee, and the burden of proof is on the employer to prove that it wasn't unfair dismissal. And the Employment Rights Act specify reasons like health and safety concerns, assertion of statutory rights, breach of contract. Fact is, when you go through your contract, say if there's any clause in your contract that specifies a term in your contract means that you must volunteer or you experimental. If there's nothing in your state that then that has breached the contract, which you have claimed for breach of contract as well as for unfair dismissal. Now there's a time limit on that. You've got 3 months in which to do so. So if you are dismissed in November, it means that you have until February in which to make your claim. Now, if you need guidance on doing that, we can provide that guidance for you. You got that?
Bianca, has that answered your question?
Hi, yeah, thank you
Was
so
that
much for that.
helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. I just remembered that one of your event, one of your meetings that we've had a month or so, one of the ladies said, I don't know if it's one of you, someone on your panel says that there is like a clause that kind of overrides this contract situation with the vaccines. I forgot the name of it.
There is absolutely no regulation that can trump your human rights. And the employer doesn't have any leg to stand on.
Okay. So yeah.
Burden is on the employer, not on you. You don't have to prove anything. The employer has to prove it. And the fact is, they would have trampled on your human rights
Thank you, Kwame, and thank you very much, Bianca. So
Thank
we're
you.
going to move. Thank you. We're going to move on to the next hand, and I'm going.
Sorry,
in
what's the contact? Sorry, what's the contact?
We're going to give that at the end of the
Okay, thank you.
program, Bianca. Don't worry about that. Thank you. So the next hand is Shirley Powell. Shirley Powell, please. I'm going to ask you to unmute, and please state your question.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just want to say that I've had a final outcome meeting with my manager, but one thing that your colleague said was about this clinical vaccination trial. So I wanted to ask, how do you get information about the clinical vaccination trial? I was a little bit dubious and cautious because I didn't know if that would be used against you if you didn't have the vaccine. And who do you seek for legal advice? Because like your colleague rightly said, the RCN are for you having it. So although they've supported me in meetings, they haven't really, they're just there for support, not necessarily to condone me having the vaccine or not. And when I had the solicitor, they said, well, it's employment law, so we can't help you. So who do I seek for legal advice?
Shirley, there is an organisation called Workers for England. They are a trade union body, but you can contact them and they can represent you, but you'd have to join them. There is also another group where there are senior doctors and medics, and what they're trying to do is get a class action together with all the affected people, basically putting a lawsuit against the NHS. So there is information that probably Joan can share, but I can also share that in the chat as well if you want a link to that. But there are organisations looking to consolidate and put all affected people into one group and basically put a claim against the government on their behalf.
That would be great.
And added to that as well, Kwame has supported individuals in health and social care to remain in their jobs, and he's got quite a bit of expertise from that perspective. And so he has an organisation, so we'll be able to give you, if you contact the association at the end, we'll be able to give you his contact details as well, and the organisation that he's responsible as well.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much, Lucy. I appreciate that.
Thank you. So the next person is, and thank you to Sharon and Jolene for sending me the list here. Corinthians, I believe you have a question.
Sorry, that's Corrine.
What's the name? Predictive text, isn't it?
Corrine.
Corrine, can we unmute? Or can you please unmute, Corrine?
Corrine Blythe.
Yeah.
Hi.
Live. Yes,
Yeah,
hi.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can,
Yeah.
loud and clear.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the presentation. That was very useful, but I've just got a couple of questions. The first one relates to, you mentioned about the exemptions, and then it seems that most of the exemption was probably based on medical grounds, or if you're pregnant. Where does that fit in with religious exemptions? Because I know in America, there's quite a group of people, and they obviously maintaining that, you know, because of their religious belief, that they should be made exempt from having the vaccination.
So Kwame can respond to that one. I think Kwame, we can hear you now.
Fine. The fact you don't necessarily need to rely on, put it this way, they're trying to box you into a corner by dictating how you respond to matters like this. But you don't necessarily need to go for their exemptions that they're mentioning about clinical or under other medical procedures like pregnancy and things like that. You can rely on your own human rights that exempt you from dictating what goes into your body. You have got that right, and no legislation can trump that right. So irrespective of the fact of them saying about these exemptions,
Recording in progress.
irrespective of them speaking about these exemptions, you have got your human right that you can stand on, and nothing trumps that. If you need guidance in order to know how to navigate around this, we can provide that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah, it does answer my question, but I mean, I haven't had any such meetings. I just had a one-to-one, which is my supervision, and obviously I gave my views about human rights and everything else, and I found it was weak because everyone was just using like, oh, about what happened to our human rights, but their response is it's legalized, it's legal, so you have to follow. They have no choice, but they have to follow legislations. So I had to use other things like religious exemptions, and which is, I suppose, which was in my favour, made it difficult for them to challenge. But they said to me that they would get back to me regarding that, and I haven't heard from them since.
It's not legal. It's not legal at the moment. And as I mentioned, these are guidance and regulations. Yes, the CQC will be monitoring compliance, but the government's guidance is just that. It's just that.
Correct. These are all just guidance, and in respect of the CQC, they may have the power, but they certainly do not have the authority. The authority is what we have, and we do by consenting or complying with whatever request is made. Should we deny the request, then there are laws that protect from them discriminating or anything at all. We should not suffer as a result of that. A man standing on his right harms no one.
Sorry,
Okay.
can I just respond to that last point?
Velita,
Yes.
did you put your hands up?
No, it's just responding to that last point, because
Can
I was in a meeting on Friday with a top NHS manager, and they said that a law had been made on Thursday or Friday gone. So it is now law, according to the information I received in that meeting.
Thank you.
Can I respond?
Yes, please do, Kwame.
There is a huge difference between law and legislation. Now, what you are referring to is a legislation which requires consent. It's an act of parliament. It is not a law. A law has to do with our human right, has to do with man's inalienable rights, which is given by God and not man. So a man or an organization cannot make a law. They can make rules and regulation, which requires our consent. I hope that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Kwame, and thank you, Velita, for your input there. So the next person we're going on to is Patricia. Patricia, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please. Patricia, we're ready for you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good afternoon. I just want to ask a question about my last role. I was discriminated against because I wouldn't take the vaccine, and so I had to do desk duties and do visits over WhatsApp and things. I've spoken to my new manager, who was the head of service, and said that that had happened before and I wasn't keen on being discriminated against. And one of the things I noticed was we had a meeting and my new manager sort of said in public about somebody else's vaccine status. Now, I was quite concerned because I thought that was private information and shouldn't have been shared. So under my right to be anonymous under the GDPR, can I say that I've already had this discussion with my head of service, and I don't want to discuss it. How much medical information is my right to keep and how much is it to share? Because it is personal. And if I had AIDS or HIV, actually that's not relevant, that's a political statement, so I'll take that back. But how much under the GDPR do I have as a right to share about my medical concerns and my medical history, based on the fact that actually they can't tell me how severe I'll get it or what reaction there is, no, it's unknown. So how much do legally I have a right to share?
Lucille, I think that goes back to one of your slides, isn't it? About the sharing of private medical information.
Yeah, from my understanding, you really was in your rights not to share that information because it's health and it's confidential. But rather than saying, no, I'm not sharing that information, I would say, well, I need to understand what policies you've put in place, especially the vaccine policy. I would also want to see what they're doing in terms of GD, whatever, PR as well. I would want to have all that information as well. And I would go on the offensive as well. And I would put in a notice as well. And I may even raise a grievance against the organization as well. That's one of the things that I would do. I don't know if Kwame would agree with me or not.
No, I do agree with you. You are at liberty not to share anything. It's a private matter. It doesn't concern anyone except those whom you choose to share with, and you should not be coerced into doing so. But Lucille is right. You can accept on the condition that they provide you with certain information that requires of what they are required from you. Mm-hmm. And in any case, GDPR protects your data. They have got to have a legitimate purpose for processing, and they have got to provide that to you for you to consider and determine if you want to share such private, personal matter. It doesn't concern anyone.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your question, Patricia.
Hold on. Oh, he was. I
hope you.
However,
yes. Go on.
Flatly refuse. Tell them you will comply on certain conditions. So you throw it back into their court to provide the proof or provide and to meet the conditions of which will make you comply with their request.
Brilliant. And one final question. If I can give them an alternative take on how I can do my job in a safe environment, is it worth pursuing it under that way as well, i.e. social distancing and various other things?
Well, you are protected by the Employment Rights Act. It protects you from working in a safe environment and things like that. And your employer must provide that. So if you feel vulnerable and you state that, then the employer has a right to ensure that they've got to provide that environment for you in any case.
Thank you.
You can raise a grievance, and for anyone at all, I just to go back on something that was raised earlier about representation. You can represent yourself. You don't have to go through the legal courts. You can go to an organization called ACAS, which is an independent organization. And you do not need a solicitor, a lawyer, a barrister, anyone to represent you at ACAS. You can represent yourself, or you can ask anyone else to represent you. And that individual need not have any legal training any at all or any qualification.
Thank you very much, Kwame, and thank you for your question, Patricia. In the interest of time, and there are quite a number of people that have their hands up, we're going to continue. Thanks for the thumbs up, Patricia. And Kwame, Patricia appreciates your response. We're now going to go on to Derek Giddon. Derek, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and please state your question to the panel. Derek Giddon, are you still on, Derek?
Yes,
Derek?
sorry. Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think there's some dirty tricks and misinformation just generally. I just wonder as a forum, if you could check a few things in terms of what is mandatory, what is guidance, and actually what is just, you know, heavy-handedness. I mean, a wonderful presentation by Lucille. The one thing that I wondered is, and I don't know if things have moved on, because I've got a lot of rap around me being affected by this, was one of the exemptions that I'd seen in writing from a care home was that pregnancy was not an exemption, and even if you were planning a family. So again, I think, you know, I know things have moved on. And I also, the caller who said about religion, in the same letter, they actually said religion was not an exemption, end of. Now, I don't know if that was just the home flexing, or if that is legal, or that's something that went in through the back door. But I think collectively we could, you know, maybe you guys check in that, and you guys seem very well placed to do that. But pregnancy came up, starting a family was also, and religious were totally blown out, which I'm amazed that you know, there wasn't an outcry from our religious bodies on that. I'm just wondering on that. And the second question was around trade unions. Again, recently speaking to a colleague of mine, the trade unions, I suppose, is impartial, but I'm not figuring these days they are that much. But I noted what Lucille said was that even though they were promoting it, they technically would not want you to be, you know, vaccinated mandatory, and you having to have it. Now, I don't really know how that would work. In one breath, you're saying have it, another breath, you know, we're going to support you, and I can't really quite see how that would work and if that would work. But the point Lucille made about there are actually lots of other legal support that you can actually get is true. For many years, I was a shop steward, you know, and there's solicitors and people like that around those guys. But
so in terms of mandate, the VCAR, the guidance, doesn't talk about mandates. It talks all the time about guidance. I think it's the media who uses the words mandate, and other people use a mandate. So you think it's mandatory, but it's not, it's guidance. So the VCAR gives the guidance, but then they say, well, we're going to ensure compliance with this by using CQC. And CQC will be coming in and monitoring it and ensuring that everyone has had the experimental drug. So you mentioned another area about pregnancy. So the guidance is quite clear that pregnant women are exempt from the experimental drug. However, it does go into detail and say, we encourage the women to have the experimental drug, you know, the Royal College of Midwifery supports it. There's other people who support women having the experimental drug. However, in the guidance, it does say that pregnant women are exempt until 16 weeks postpartum.
Yes. I hope that answers the question. Moving on, Anisha Sewell. Anisha Sewell, if you're still on this call, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Anisha Sewell.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, thank you. What's your question?
Yeah, my question is, I got a letter from HR, but it doesn't say dear colleague. So it says dear colleague, but not dear Anisha. And then it was, got another copy. So I need to respond by January 14th. What my vaccination status is, and give a reason if I'm declining, and if I'm exempted, I need to state and provide evidence. And I'm working in the lab. So the letter doesn't say anything about frontline workers, but it's as long as you work for a CQC, I think that's what it is, registered. So I work at a hospital in the lab. Do I have to respond to that letter?
Okay, Kwame.
Yes, it would be good to if you don't, then you're silent and as acquiescence. So yeah, but however, be mindful that these are all empty threats. They have got over you except that to which you consent. The best thing all of us to do is to lose the fear. Help is out there, and we are here. Anyone along these lines, there is strength in numbers. Rest assured, we can guide you as to how to respond to that letter, not with a letter, but with a notice. Hope that-
Lovely. Yes, thank you, Kwame. And Nisha, please thumbs up if you were happy with that response. And may I remind our viewers that we will be giving details at the end. Thank you for your hands up. Kwame, she was satisfied with that response. And then we're going to move on to the next person, and that is Cynthia Brady. Please unmute yourself and please state your question.
Hi, good evening. Yeah,
Hi.
I just wanted to, part of my question has been answered about representation. So I'll grab that information when it's given. The other one was I had a letter on Saturday. I knew it was coming. I was told in the week. Had a letter on Saturday about vaccination, of course, for the 1st of April. And my CEO has said, you know, if I have any concerns, I should come to her and discuss those concerns. Now, should I take representation in with me at that point?
Yes, Kwame, over to you.
It not take representation, but you can take someone to give you support, to sit with you, give you, to listen to what they have to say, take it away, and then respond accordingly. Do you follow that?
Yeah, can you please unmute?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, I did. I followed that. Yeah. So representation could come probably a little bit further on down the line if things get sticky, like ACAS and other bodies you've mentioned.
Correct.
Well, that you wouldn't be seeking ACAS at this stage. It's after they've terminated your contract. Yes. So it's during this stage that you have the discussion with. Just go and listen to your CEO. Why is it the CEO and not? Is she your line manager?
Go ahead and respond. Cynthia.
Sorry, going off. Yes, she's my line manager.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you get
Don't
that?
be disarmed by her nicety.
Thank you. So Cynthia, in the interest of time, we have to move on to other questions, but please give a thumbs up or a sign that you are happy with that response. And we will be, thank you very much, Cynthia. Lucille and Kwame, Cynthia's happy with that response. So the next person on my list is Marianus Osu. Marianus Osu, if you're still on the call, please can you state your question? Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi everyone, sorry.
Hi.
So in regards to substantive contracts, where do you stand if you're substantive new to post on probation?
Did you hear that, Kwame?
Could you repeat that? It was a bit muffled.
If you're on the substantive contract, where do you stand if your contract is not substantive? So you're saying it's a temporary role?
No, I think she started a job.
So it's a new job, substantive post, permanent post.
Oh, it's a substantive post.
Yeah, but trusts are now doing 6-month probation. So you'd still be in your probationary period. So I don't know where you stand with regards to what you were mentioning on the earlier slides about being substantive and 2 years. And
no, once you are employed, it doesn't matter the length of your once you're in a contract employment with your employer, and they should unfairly dismiss you, then irrespective of your length of time, you still have recourse. Answer your question.
Has that answered your question, Mariana?
Yes, but then I just had one more question, if you don't mind. Maternity leave. Should employers be making contact with staff on maternity leave? I've had quite a few staff that have been contacted that have just had babies maybe over the summer, and they've been told they need to be vaccinated by the time they're 16. Well, once their baby's 16 weeks old, they need to be vaccinated, even though they'll still be on leave.
Yes, well, sorry, go ahead, Kwame.
Go on, Lucille.
No, I was just saying, your employees should be keeping contact with you anyway. If you're on sick or absence, they're supposed to be having that one-to-one, just ringing you, see how you're getting on, etc. That's what they should be doing anyway. Your line manager should be doing that, but really they cannot start those conversations. They really cannot start those conversations until you return to work.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mariana. And so the next person on my list is Natasha Jacobs. Natasha, please unmute yourself and state your question. Natasha Jacobs.
Hello,
Hi,
can you hear me? Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my situation is very similar to Bianca, who asked the first question. I was in a care home. I'm a qualified nurse. My last working day was the 11th of November. I didn't resign. I stayed and I worked until my last day. Going by your convert slide, Lucille, they didn't follow everything that you stated on there, but I did write a letter which just basically explained about my religious beliefs and why I wanted to decline the vaccine. I sent it to the manager and I sent a copy to HR. I didn't hear anything back from HR, but my managers just basically said to me, thank you for such a thoughtful letter and your work of service. And I basically had to leave. So yeah, apart from that, it's very, very similar to Bianca. So I would be very happy to contact you, Kwame, if that's okay, for assistance.
That's fine.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Natasha, thank you so much for your question, Natasha.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next person on my list is Natasha Estick. Natasha Estick, if you could please unmute yourself and state your question.
Hello.
Hi, Natasha.
Hi. Thank you so much for this forum. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, are trusts able to change or make additions to the VCOD? Because everything that I've been reading says that it's direct face-to-face contact, whereas my managers have said, and there's also some documentation saying that it now applies to anywhere that patients have access. And if you are in contact with doctors and nurses that have patient contact.
Kwame or Lucille?
Yeah, can we get one thing clear? The VCOD document in itself is illegal. It's full of misinformation and it's meant to invoke fear. In which means that
it's illegal. Illegal, not legal. I think
no, it is illegal. Yeah, thanks for that, Lucille. It is illegal, which means that we are all at liberty to ignore illegal, anything illegal at all. It means that it is tyranny. And in the face of tyranny, we all have a responsibility to be non-compliant. So they are using a lot of misinformation in the VCOD in order to invoke fear so that we can all be compliant with whatever they are requesting.
Right. Just on that, Natasha, I was attending a forum on Tuesday where there were a group of health employees on board, and they were saying that even if you were a plumber, if you were a business analyst, if you were on the premises of a hospital, even if you did not have face-to-face contact with patients, they could get rid of you if you don't have the vaccine. So I hear what Kwame is saying, that it's an illegal document, but they seem to have the power to basically take people's jobs from them. It might be something that after you've lost your job, you're able to, take them through the legal route. But at the moment, they seem to be definitely enforcing it, no matter what your position is within the health service.
I agree with you, but there are recourse to these. One can prevent them taking away. It can prevent them dismissing you in the first instance. And two, in the event that they should illegally dismiss you, then there are recourse.
Yeah.
Which is why it is best in the initial stages to do things properly by serving the proper notices, so that we are protected in the event that it has to go down certain other routes.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If you serve the notice, then that stalls them getting rid of you. To go through the recourse route once you've already lost your job might take time. So you want to prevent that happening in the first place.
Yeah.
Right, okay, because I was worried that that might be deemed aggressive. So what's the best point to serve the notice?
Once they give you notification or a letter, something in writing signed by someone with some authority to bind the organization, then at that point, you can respond with a notice.
Okay.
An unsigned letter has no legal ramifications whatsoever. So an unsigned letter is just a piece of paper that means nothing at all, unless someone is stepping forward to accept responsibility for the contents of that letter.
Thank you very much, Kwame, and thank you very much for your question, Natasha. I hope that it was answered. Please give a sign or signal that it was, and we will be posting details and contacts later on. So the next person, Michelle Mullins. Michelle, please, thank you for your thumbs up. Michelle Mullins, please unmute yourself and state your question. Michelle. Okay.
Sorry, I don't have up my hand.
Okay, no, you don't have your hands up.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to move on to the next person then. Jennifer Williams. Jennifer Williams, please unmute yourself and state your question.
Hi there. Yes, I just wanted to check. I work in the NHS. I have done so for over 10 years. And they're telling us that we need to... Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you, Jennifer. Continue.
Yeah, so we've been told we need to go online. They're going to provide an email address, and we have to provide the vaccination code that people are given when they're vaccinated, and we're meant to supply that. Now, I have no intention of being vaccinated, so where does that leave me in terms of my employment status?
Kwame?
How did you receive that information?
They sent a general email to all staff, but not personalized to me.
Okay. So you can respond to whomever the author of that notice is, to say that you have observed this notice and you want to find out how it applies to you. You can just ask questions, and then based on what they say, then you ask for it in writing, signed by someone accepting responsibility for it, and then we can respond accordingly.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And so the next person, Christine's S20FE. Christine's F20FE. If you could please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Good evening. I work within the NHS also. I'm in primary healthcare, so I work with local GPs and midwifery. We've been sent an email, generic email, pointing us to a staff intranet where there's a questionnaire that we're expected to fill out with our status. Now, I'm concerned that by filling that out and providing information that they could then use against me, to try to redeploy me or dismiss me completely. So what information can I provide as to why I don't want to fill it out, and what legal regress will I have if they do decide to redeploy me to a position that isn't suitable?
Kwame,
It's,
can I ask you to respond, please?
yeah, that's fine. It's the very same way. It's a generic email. So what you have to do is, whoever the author is, you contact them saying you have had sight of the email, and you're just calling or making contact for clarity to know how it applies to you. And then, like I said earlier, you get whatever they are saying in writing from them, signed by them, to notify you of how it applies to you and how, if you are required to be compliant with it. And then when you receive that, we can respond accordingly with a relevant notice, and we take it from there. But in any case, just going online to put in personal data is a breach of GDPR.
Yeah, because it's just an online questionnaire that they're doing, and in the background they've advised us that they are working on new GDPR guidance that will be coming out sometime this month. But at the moment you're putting the horse before the cart. You want us to fill out the questionnaire, but you haven't given us the guidance as to how the information will be used.
Yeah, and besides, GDPR tell you that any data must be processed lawfully, fairly, and in a transparent manner in relation to the individual. So if they are collecting data, they must specify their legitimate purpose for what they require your data. Who's the data controller? Who's the data processor? How will your data be protected? What's the purpose they are collecting it for? All of these things need to be made. They need to make that transparent to you before they can process your data. So you have got a right not to share it, and you are protected by GDPR and the Data Protection Act.
Does that answer your question, Christine?
Just one thing that you mentioned about the notices that we can give to the CEO. Where can we have sight of those notices that we can use as a comeback?
Well, we can provide that. Or as Lucille had
Lucille has the templates.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Excellent. I'm actually loving the responses between Lucille and Kwame and Laverne. Excellent responses. I know everyone's quite happy with those. So the next person that I'm going to call on to unmute yourself is Rosette Ibazabwa, I think, and please forgive me for the pronunciation. Rosette, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Rosette, are you still on the call?
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you. Please state your question.
Oh, you can hear me?
Oh, absolutely, my dear. Please ask your question.
Yeah. So obviously, my question is that I'm a carer. I used to be anyway. I'm being suspended, and I didn't even receive any. I just received text message from my manager. Oh, you've been suspended until you bring the documents that you exempt or the vaccination certificate. So since November 11th, obviously I have not worked, and I have not even heard from them since then. I received that text message from my manager. So what can I do in such a situation?
Rosetta.
Yeah.
You just made my body hot. I'm going to pass this question on to Kwame. Please, can you respond to this?
Thank you.
A few questions, Rosetta. You said you received your suspension via a text message.
Yeah.
Is that the normal way your employer?
On WhatsApp.
No, what I want to find out, is that the normal way?
No, that's not normal, because what happened really in November, I lost my uncle on road accident, and I took annual leave there. And while I was still, taking my annual leave dates, I at that time there was no manager in the home, and obviously
that's fine.
At that time I've reported some abuse in the home. I wrote to my boss, and then obviously while I was still taking my annual leave, I received the email reminding me about my vaccination and replying regarding the letter I wrote to them.
So you were on leave?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does
so
your
now,
employer provide is the phone you're using provided by your employer?
Pardon?
Or is it your personal phone?
My employer, obviously, I received
No, I know. What I want to find out, the phone that you are using, do they pay for it? Do they provide you with it as part of your employment, or is it your personal phone?
My personal phone.
Okay, so you see where I'm going. It's an unauthorized message. It is junk mail. Basically, that is not the normal way your employer communicates with you. It is an informal method. So you're at liberty to ignore that and turn up for work. Should you turn up for work and they then say anything to you, challenge you in respect of that, then we can deal with it. But I would suggest to you that you turn up for work. And then if anything happens, we deal with it there and then. Or you can respond with a letter to your employer to say that you received this unsolicited mail or message that you did not consent to. You have no knowledge as to how it impacts you any at all. So you're seeking for clarity. And then we can take it from there.
Okay, so what you are saying now, I can still do it now, right? This letter?
You can do it now. Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Because what I'm saying, it is an unsolicited message. You never consented.
I know it was sham. Obviously, at that time, obviously, like, I'm stressed out because I've lost someone, and I'm supposed to be on my annual leave, and you text me as a manager. It was just, and after that, I've not heard from them.
One last question.
And I've been working for them 8 years. Sorry.
One last question. I'm aware that time is against us. How did your employer get your number? Did you give it to them?
Pardon?
How did the employer come in contact with your number? Did you provide them with your phone number?
Yeah, because obviously this is actually WhatsApp message from my manager.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying, did you provide them with the phone number as a means of contacting you? Did you give it to them?
Yeah, they do have my the number I gave them when I signed contract years back.
And when you signed it, did you consent to receiving any messages outside of the work environment?
No, I never consent that.
Okay.
But obviously my manager, she had my other line, that's how she ended up sending me the.
That's fine, Rosetta. What we can do now is, as I said earlier, just write to your employer, tell them that you received this, and you just need clarity on it, and then we can take it from there.
All right.
Thank
so
you, Rosetta.
If you need assistance in formulating the letter, then we can provide that for you.
Yeah, I would love that, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rosetta.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So the next person is Gloria. Gloria, if you're still on the call, please unmute yourself and state your question.
Hi, so I also work for an NHS trust, and my NHS trust is saying that I need to respond by tomorrow. They're asking me to provide information. Where is the letter? They're saying I need to provide the following information by text: my full name, my employee number, my date of birth, my department, my role, my vaccination status, and the date of my second vaccination. So I have only been in the trust for a very short period. I am also still in my probationary period. In conjunction with me being in my probationary period, part of the requirement, which is not stipulated in my contract, is that I also need to be driving because I'm based in the community. And I just want to know, in terms of what like what a previous person has mentioned, what do I actually need to declare? Like at the end of the day, if it's my medical information, which is part of my vaccination status, then realistically it's private, it's my own private information. So I don't want to consent to doing that, because then obviously, just like somebody else has said, I'm shooting myself in the foot. Like, why would I do that to myself? So you said that I need to, it was mentioned about providing a notice letter. And obviously, like I said, if I don't do this by tomorrow, it says, if you do not respond by this date, your manager will be notified and an urgent meeting will be arranged with you. So what can I do to ensure that I, number one, keep my job, number two, don't then have to use another reason why they're trying to fire me, which is because I don't drive yet? What are my options, please?
Your options are conditionally accepting. So tell them that you will comply on certain conditions.
So certain conditions, can you elaborate on that?
Kwame, can you speak into your mic a bit more? And once in a while, we appear to lose you. Thank you.
Sorry. No, what I'm saying, you accept on the condition that they provide you with the proof as to why you should provide this personal and private information, and you would list the specific conditions. As I said, we have got the content of said notice that we can provide for you.
Sorry, you're
Does that
cutting
answer
out?
your question? Tomorrow, it may one conference over telephone with either myself or Lucille to provide that for you.
Yes, tomorrow. I finish work at 4:30. So is anybody available after that time?
Is it to talk you through it?
Yes, please. Just to what I need to write so I can respond in via email or in a letter, notice letter.
So Lucille, do you want to respond to that? Because I was thinking that we're going to be providing the resources, the templates that Lucille alluded to in her presentation, and that's going to be.
It's
Go ahead, Lucille.
We can either do it for your the association, because we'll have the templates with the association, or they can go, work with Kwame as well. The challenge that I have is that I'm currently overseas. That's the challenge. So there's a big time difference as well where we are. So at this moment in time, I will go through the association. That information will be available, or go through Kwame.
It will be available on the website, Lucille. Yeah, the templates you alluded to. So
I have a second question, so sorry.
Gloria, we've got so many people with their hands up.
Yeah, it's just the last. If, for instance, it says that I lack understanding because I don't have all the key information. Like I haven't gone to my doctor to see what the list of exemptions are. Then the doctor hasn't responded to me about the risks of taking that medication, and I don't have that information. Is that a grounds for me not to respond to this letter yet because I'm not fully informed?
Yes, it is. And these are some of the things that you will put in your notice of conditional acceptance and put the shoe back on their foot for them to provide information to you. There has to be full disclosure. You haven't got that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Thank you very much. The next person is Ria. Ria, are you still on the call? And if so, please unmute yourself and state your question. Can I just also add before Ria speaks or states a question, we are over the time of 5 o'clock, and I'm asking my panelist colleagues if they're happy to continue for a short while I go through the other four people that have put their hands up. Is that okay with the panelists? Thank you. If that's okay, thank you all. And if that's okay with our listening audience, you're still staying with us. We'll continue for a short while because we're here to help you and assist you. And please keep your questions to one question, please, as we get through. So Ria, please unmute yourself and ask your question, my dear.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ria, we can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for the presentation. That's the first thing I wanted to say. It's been very informative. So basically, I work on a mental health unit. I'm currently on the sick, but I'm due to go back very soon. My manager did ring me to ask me if I'm willing to take the vaccination. I've stated that I'm not, and as a result, he said I'd have to leave by February. I'm just wondering, is this legally allowed, or would it be classed as an unfair dismissal? And what's the first step in challenging this?
Okay. Yes, thank you, Kwame.
It would be unfair dismissal. However, once again, it's the same treatment. We send your manager, not your manager. We notify the CEO by sending a notice to the CEO requesting full disclosure of certain information so that you can make an informed decision as to how you wish to proceed. In the absence of that, they have got anything that they do would be illegal, and you have got recourse.
Okay, so basically, what you're basically saying is I've got to get this notice to the CEO as soon as I can.
Correct.
Okay, and you're
Remember
going to
now,
provide.
you're not denying anything. You're basically seeking for information so that you can make an informed decision.
Right, okay, and this information, the CEO templates will be available at the end of this presentation, am I correct?
It will be available this evening, absolutely. We will make sure it goes on our front page.
Lovely, and just one more little
I just want to add as well, these templates should be tailored to your particular circumstances, because there's some guidance in some of them, and if you just send it off without going through it line by line, amending it and adapting it, and especially with your situation, Ria, you can make a mention of, you know, your line manager saying that you're going to resign, you know, under what policy are they saying that? You know, what have you done wrong for them to say that you're going to have to resign by such and such a date as well? So tailor the templates according to your circumstances. They shouldn't be all looking the same.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I was about to say that, Lucille. So even though there's a template, this thing is tailored to specific circumstances, because everyone's circumstance is different. And we are here to provide the guidance for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And then there was just one little thing. I know you said keep it to one, but it's just one little one. So do you know, writing to the MP about everything, about all of this, would that make any difference, or could that help in any case?
I really don't know, but personally, I don't think so. But I mean, I guess everyone else has a different opinion on that.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
You should try every route possible.
That's what I'm thinking.
There's nothing to lose, is there?
Yeah, and you know, if more people do that, then maybe they will take notice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so
very
much.
Ria.
I appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Oh, you're very welcome. So I now have Noreen Na. Noreen Na, if you could please, if you're still on the call, please unmute yourself and state your question to the panel.
Hi, I'll be very
Noreen.
quick, I promise. My question was, I am a bank worker, so I guess you could say agency, and it seems a little bit to a lot of us that our dismissal would be, I guess, significantly quicker than everybody else's. So I just wanted to check, is that the case? Are we under the same sort of rules and regulations as people who are permanently employed, or is there some sort of other policy or, I don't know, article that they can use against bank workers? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Noreen. So Noreen's actually saying bank worker meaning temporary worker, almost like agency. Does she have the same rights, Kwame?
So is there any contract, any at all?
Yes, there should be. There should be.
Yeah. Noreen.
Some people. Could I just add that most people on the bank employed by the organization, they would have a contract, and even though it's bank, it is considered substantive, and you would still have to give your resignation if you're walking away from that post. So yes,
in that respect, then there would be the same rights afforded to you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Noreen, thank you very much for your question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next person I have is Dr. Valletta Davis. Dr. Valletta Davis, are you still on the call? If so, please state your question. Dr. Valletta Davis? No? Okay. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, yes. Hi. Oh,
Hi,
I think you asked a question
hi.
before, didn't you? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I wish I
right.
was a doctor, but I'm not. But thank you
Well,
for that.
someone actually gave you, doctor, is it me misreading it? But go ahead, Valletta. And then
okay.
after that, we're going to have Di. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. Apologies because I came into the meeting late. I was notified late, so I'm not sure if this has been addressed. But I work for the mental health sector of the NHS, and I'm having to respond to the same dates as everyone else. But I want to ask a question about redeployment, because I was in the same meeting I was in on Friday. It was a regional meeting, and we were talking with people from Wolverhampton. And when I spoke to my manager about redeployment, she said she doesn't know anything about that and she will go and look into it. What is the employer's responsibility in terms of redeployment? Because what I'm experiencing at the moment with shortness of staff, they are giving us pre-warning that we can be redeployed at any time to support other departments. But in terms of the vaccination and people not wanting to be vaccinated, that's not being offered as an option. What is the legal position on redeployment, and is it national, or will some trusts be different from others?
Kwame and Lucille.
Lucille, you want to go first?
The guidance says, it's guidance, you probably didn't hear it, but the VCOD is guidance and your employers can choose to follow it or not. It's just guidance there. But in the guidance, it says that currently your employees should be looking at redeployment opportunities if people choose not to get the experimental drug. So they should be following a policy. So go on your intranet, look for the redeployment policy and see what they're doing. What is a process for redeployment as well. Also, there should be a vaccine policy, which they should have developed, COVID-19 vaccination policy, which they should also develop. And that should make reference to other policies as well. So what you need to be doing, I would recommend find out those different policies and go through them as well. That is if you want to be redeployed.
Thank you very much, Lucille. I hope that answered your question, Valletta. We have to move on, but please make a sign if that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Valletta. And so is there someone called Di? Di, are you still on the call? And if so, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Di, we can. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for this afternoon. It's been really, really informative. So I work for the NHS and was in a briefing on Friday where they had said that they expect all employees who wish to be vaccinated by the 3rd of February. This is for their first dose, which would give them enough time to be able to have the second dose and be fully vaccinated by the 1st of April. During that meeting, we were also told that the earliest period of time that we could have been given our notice of termination would be the 4th of February. So from that period of time, say, I don't intend to be vaccinated, my employer knows that I'm not vaccinated. On the 4th of February, I could potentially receive a notification of termination of my employment, which would take me up to the 1st of April. And then I guess from the 1st of April be dismissed. I wanted to ask in terms of, I know that it was mentioned that our managers they're encouraged to have informal conversations with us. I guess following the 3rd of February, those informal conversations potentially aren't happening, and that they would move to formal conversations. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct?
The guidance states that people who are vaccinated, it should be by the 31st of March, and then from the 1st of April, that's when they can commence the formal processes. That's from the 1st of April.
Right, okay, so nothing can happen, although that they know that we're not vaccinated by the 3rd.
Remember, this is guidance. They can choose to ignore it if they will.
Right, okay, okay.
But also, before it gets there, you need to be serving them notice of your intentions and requiring certain information from them, full and frank disclosure, so you can make a decision.
Right, and that's the mandatory COVID-19 vaccine template that Lucia spoke about at the very beginning.
Right, which, as she said, should be tailored to suit individual needs.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's really helpful.
Thank you, Di. Thank you very much. So the next person is Maria. Maria, if you're still on the call, please unmute yourself and state your question. Maria? Is Maria still on the call? And please go ahead and unmute yourself and please state your question.
Sorry, that's Miriam.
It's Miriam. Yeah, that WhatsApp predictive texting. So it's Miriam. Is Miriam still on the call? If so, please unmute yourself. Okay, no. I'm moving on to Caroline and Clive. Humphrey, if you're on the call, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, yeah, it's Carol and Clive, but no problem. Hiya.
Hi.
I actually took my hands down afterwards because I thought, okay, you had all these people to get through to.
No, we're here in the, we're here for a little while longer while we try to answer people's questions. Yeah.
Okay, that's no problem. First of all, I just want to thank you for this platform because it's really informative. I think there was one that was done before on no jab. No job, no jab. And I even got my cousin to come on who's not, a Seventh-day Adventist. And she was calling me back because it didn't have enough information, if you know what I mean. No disrespect. Yeah. But this one, right. Yeah, this one having all the information to say in regards to the legislation and all that, I think is very informative. So I just want to congratulate you guys on that, first of all. It's really
Thank you.
Informative.
Praise God.
Praise God. Also, the next thing was one of the ladies, I'm not sure if it was Bianca, she spoke about in regards to religious purposes in not being able to have the vaccination. And according to what I've heard from one of the platform, in regards to, if I'm not sure if she's a 7 days, but in regards to our 7 days Adventist church, we can't use that. Because even somebody else had asked me from my in-laws from at the time abroad, because their country was making it mandatory and all that stuff. And she said, where does that lie with the 7 days Adventist church? And I said, well, we're not advocating that we can use that. So they're not going to give, out that sort of information. So that was one of the things. There was one more thing I kind of forgot because I didn't expect to be called. There was one more thing. Yeah, the bank, right? So I worked years for the investment bank as well. One of the ladies spoke about the banking, and I know with Citibank that I was working for, they were requiring their workers in New York to all be vaccinated by February, but they didn't say it for the British ones, for the ones in England. So, for some reason, that's the Citibank Canary Wharf. So, but I think at the moment, if it's not like necessarily a face-to-face, you're just walking past people. I don't believe that in the banking where I'm usually working, they're going to require that, or maybe in time to come, I don't know, but at the moment, as I said, they're not requiring it. But all I know is in America, Citibank, they were
Carol,
we're not talking about financial banks, we're talking about health banks.
So it's like agency
Oh, I
work.
see.
That's-
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I'm talking about investor. Oh, okay. I thought she said she
No,
was the-
Thank
no.
you.
So it's a bit different. It's a bit
Oh.
different what we're referring to.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
if for any information anyway, it's compulsory in the investment bank in America, but not here. But okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay then. Thank you.
Thank you very
Goodbye.
much. Thank you. Bye. And thank you for your kind words of encouragement. So we're now on to Sophia Hughes. Sophia Hughes, if you're still on the call, please unmute yourself and ask your question. We are taking questions for a short while longer. Sophia Hughes, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Lovely, Sophia. Thank you.
Right, okay, so basically, I'll try and make it short. I work for the NHS and I've been with them for almost 35 years. I suffer with a very, very allergy situation, and my manager is aware of that. I got the first impression about to do with this vaccine that if you've got an allergy that you're not meant to actually take the vaccine until you are actually investigated for it. What I've been trying to do is gather the evidence and try to see if I could get tested with the vaccine against what I'm taking to see if my body could react with it and to be safe for myself. And I've been fighting all corners. I've gone through Oki Health, I've gone through the union, I've even tried to dial 119, which you can't get through as well. Before someone was saying that the vaccination is exempt only for pregnancy in under 16s, but I'm sure I've heard something about the allergy. If you've got an allergy, could you put me straight with that, please? And where do I go?
Safia, if you go onto the gov.uk website, there's guidance, and one of the points for medical exemption is a person with severe allergies to all currently available vaccines. So you should be able to ask your doctor if he's got on record any severe reactions that you've had in the past to other medication.
Right, and I actually have an injection every month because of my allergy, and I did take this back to my GP, and he was stating to me that he's not the one to do the exemption. So I'm thinking, well, who do I go to then? Because I thought it was my GP or my clinician from the hospital that I'm getting my injections every month for. So it's stressing me out as it is. I'm on a break from my normal injection for my allergy. So I'm actually stressed out now. And I'm not quite sure where to go with this now, because I just feel like I'm not getting no help or nowhere.
Yeah, well, the gov.uk website states all exemptions will be assessed by your doctor, specialist clinician or midwife. So you need to go back to your doctor and you need to basically show him the guidance on the gov.uk website.
All right, thank you so much.
Well, could I just also add to that, in terms of the VCARD guidance, it says that the employer should refer the employee to occupational health. And it's occupational health, and the doctor within occupational health does that assessment, whether the person is exempt or not.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you, Sophia, for your questions. So the next one is Shaza. I think it's Shaza. Shaza, if you're still on the call, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thanks
Hi,
for
Shaza.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. It was very insightful. Just two quick questions. My employer, they've declined referring us to Oki Health. What grounds do I have to insist on a referral? The second question is, my GP has declined doing an exemption. He said that he doesn't do an exemption. So who do I go to complete my exemption form for me? Can I go to another clinician or a midwife, or does it have to be my GP?
So I'm not sure who to pose this question to.
Well, I'm just going from the VCARD guidance, and the VCARD guidance states which people are exempt. And if someone has an allergic reaction, that isn't an exemption. That essentially you get tested with the experimental drug, and then if you get an allergic reaction, then we may consider, for instance, not giving you a second one. But the only exemption they give is myocarditis. That's the only exemption, and pregnancy.
So if there's a history of myocarditis in the family, I mean, I haven't been diagnosed with it, but if there's a history, what would be my chances of getting an exemption?
I didn't quite hear what you said about the occupational health, because it's the occupational health department who should be making those assessments.
The employer has told us that, but they won't be doing any referrals to occupational health. They haven't given any reasons why.
Okay, so they're not following the VCOD guidance. You can present the VCOD guidance to them, or you can, as Kwame says, give them a notice.
Okay.
Shazza, I would also go to the UK Gov. Website though, because there it was last updated on the 22nd of December 2021, so it is up to date. And if you print that off, you can take that to your employer or your doctor, but it does state the possible reasons for a medical exemption.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Shazza. I hope that's answered your question. Moving on, we've only got just a small handful now. Esther Santos. Esther Santos, if you're still on the call, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Esther Santos. No? Esther? Okay, and moving on. Ezra Ben Israel. If you're still on the call, please unmute yourself.
Sorry, Esther is here. I lost
Hi,
connection.
Esther. Okay,
Hi,
Esther. Hi.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, guys, for what you're doing. May God bless you all. I've got a quick question. So with me, I work for NHS by kind of indirectly, simply because I'm a community pharmacist. So I'm self-employed. So I work for myself. So working with different community pharmacy. Now, the question is, most of the pharmacies, their employers have asked them to get vaccinated, and they have taken the vaccine. Obviously, with the hospital staff, I know the hospital staff will be, hospital pharmacists will be just like having the same issue with the nurses and doctors based in secondary care. Now, my concern is, as a self-employed, who, you know, working in a community, what would be my stand? Because obviously I don't have any contract with anyone. I'm just working through agencies, working for myself through my company. What would be my stand if I should be asked to get this vaccine? Because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm not having it is I choose to go where I want to go. But when that time comes and I'm not able to do so because of hopefully it doesn't, but obviously, like Dr. Chidi said, you've seen the sharpness of their teeth, you know what else is likely to come. Where do I stand? What is your advice for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Kwame, are you able to answer that question for Esther?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Well, it all depends on who is requesting for you to get vaccinated. Dependent on that, then that's the individual you would have discussions with. So let's say, who do you provide your services to as a pharmacist?
One moment. Yes, Esther, can you please answer that question?
Okay, thank you. So basically, I have the option of going to work for GP surgeries, and sometimes I work for Boots, sometimes I work for Tesco Pharmacy. So it's all the merge of community pharmacies that I work with, including the independent ones. I don't have a specific contract with any of them.
No, that's fine. So it all depends on, let's say the chief exec of Boots is requiring you to be vaccinated to come on their premises. Then it is to him or her whom you would serve a notice to. If the GP surgery requesting that, then it would be the owner of the GP practice who you would serve notice on in that respect, and then you can proceed from there.
Oh,
Does that
okay.
answer your question?
Partly, but my issue is I don't have specific contract with them directly. And the thing is, I do administer flu jabs to patients. So obviously, aside from doing my normal prescription work, I do consultation face-to-face with patients, giving them the flu vaccine. So in essence, I'm still involved in patient care, if you know what I mean, but not having specific.
I
where do I stand?
understand that, but no, I entirely what I'm saying, it is dependent upon whom would be requiring you to be vaccinated. So whoever is requiring that is whom you would take it up with. So whichever individual for whichever organization is requesting that, that's where you would go. So as I said, if it was Boots, then it would be the chief exec. If it's the GP practice, then it is the owner of the practice. If it's a health clinic, then it is whoever is responsible for the clinic. It is the head man or head woman in charge.
Okay, thank you.
Does that provide more clarity for you?
Esther, is that fine for you?
Yes, thank you so much for that. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Right.
You're
Okay. Thank you very much, Kwame. Lorraine Sutherland. Lorraine Sutherland, if you're still on this call, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
I think you're going to go to Ezra.
Ezra Ben Israel. Okay, and then after that is Lorraine. So Ezra.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. Yeah, hi. My name is Ezra. I joined late, so sorry if my question is something that you've already covered. But basically, I work for a charity which comes under being CQC registered. So we received notice that all staff have to be vaccinated, as they call it, or with this experiment drug by the 3rd of February. The first one by the 1st of February, so that we have enough time for the second one. Otherwise, after the 1st of April, we would no longer be in employment. So I was just wanting to find out what is my stance on that, and what can I do around that?
Is that formal notice you have received a letter?
So it wasn't signed. So it was a letter that went out to all staff, and it had, as in print, the names of the chief managers and stuff like that, but it wasn't signed as in hand signed. So would that count as signature? So on the letters, at the bottom of the letter, it had the head of.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't count any at all. What I would suggest is that you send a notice to the chief exec of the organization. You can make reference to this letter, this generic letter that you have received that no one has accepted responsibility for, and ask relevant questions for clarity. And then upon the response, then you can serve a notice of conditional acceptance, accepting whatever they are requesting of you to do on the condition that they can provide full and frank disclosure, as well as various other things that would be the content of the notice.
Okay, and is that the templates that was discussed earlier? Is that the templates that will be available that I would need to tweak, and then I can send that?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and will they be sent out, or is it on the website we need to go to?
We're going to be placing it on the Association of Health Reformers website on the front page, and it's going to be placed on there later this evening.
Okay, thank you.
May I also add that we're aware that not everyone may be versed enough or conversant enough on how to navigate around the drafting of these notices to tailor them to specific needs and things like that. So we can also, or we're making ourselves available to provide guidance on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ezra. I hope that's answered your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. So I'm now going to ask Lorraine Sutherland, if you're still here, please unmute yourself and state your question.
Hi, thank you so much, Joan, and thanks to
Hi.
everybody for the wonderful presentations. My question is, I'm an agency nurse, not a bank nurse, so I work with the agency into the NHS hospitals. Where do I stand? Because if the hospital will not accept, the agency will not provide. So where do I stand where that is concerned?
Shall I go or Lucille?
Yes, please, Kwame. Yes, please.
Okay. Now, it depends. If the agency is requesting that you get vaccinated, then it would be the chief exec of the agency who you would take it up with. Or if, I mean, you have no contract with the NHS per se, so your direct route would be to the chief exec of the agency to serve them notice to requesting full and frank disclosure so that you can make an informed decision. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to add to that situation. I don't want to give you no hope, but you're in a sort of precarious position because the agency will just say, well, the NHS hospitals are not accepting workers who have not been vaccinated, and we cannot get you any work. So by default, you know, you become unemployable.
Yeah, that is so true, Lucille, and that is a position that I'm in because the agency are there to provide work or, you know, for themselves, and if the hospital is not going to supply, say to them that you can't find employment with us because you're not vaccinated, then the agency will not, they can't send it to the hospital. So by default, as you rightly say, so it sounds like, you know, different career path or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope that answered. Thank you very much, Lorraine, for your question. Now we're only going to take, because it's actually 5:45, Dorcas, Zolika, and Judith. Those are the three that was up. We can't take any more questions, unfortunately, because the time is against us, and which is unfortunate. But we will be hopefully putting up a frequently asked questions on the website. So the first person I'm going to go to, Dorcas, if you're still here, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Then it's followed by Zolika and Judith. Dorcas, are you still on the call? If so, please state your question.
I am. Hi, good afternoon, and thank you guys for your information. Yes, so basically I'm just speaking on behalf of my husband. So he actually works in the care sector, and obviously just before December, he was actually told verbally by his manager that he needs to be vaccinated by the 31st of January. And unfortunately, he was ill for some time, so he hasn't been back to work. On the 14th of January, he actually spoke to one of his managers verbally, just to inform them on his condition of his illness. On that particular day, the 14th of January, he then received a text message, but it's not addressed to him personally, just says, "Dear all, those who already have COVID-19 vaccine, please ignore this text. Those who do not have your vaccination yet, please do it ASAP." And it then basically says, new government regulation is to those who do not have your first vaccination by 31st of January 2022, you are not allowed to work in care sector. So I just wanted to know what's the situation for my husband.
Kwame?
It's real. I mean, just listening to these statements and stuff, the tyranny, it's almost unbelievable. That's why I'm actually shaking my head. So no disrespect to anyone at all. However, as you have said, your husband has received an informal text message. I mean, he can respond to the chief exec to say that he has received this. It wasn't directed at him, however, it concerns him. So he's asking for clarity as to how it applies to him. And then he can state his concerns, and then he can ask questions and open up the discussion from there, and seek for full disclosure as to why they're trying to coerce him into getting or taking part in the experiment, and take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that an appropriate response for you?
Yes.
Are you happy with that?
Yes, I am very happy. Thank you very much, Kwame. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. So the next person, if you're still on the call, Zalika, please state your question, unmute yourself and state your question.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for
Good afternoon.
this. Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this wonderful and informative Zoom contact that we've had. And I just want to say, you know, it's one thing that people stand on the sidelines and say they can help, but it's another thing when people come together under one accord in like-mindedness and really put themselves out to help others.
Amen.
Now, what I wanted to say was that I came from a medical background. Many years ago, I used to work for NHS, and I've also come from a law background. And through your very encouraging no jab, no job third installation, I've managed to rethink the God-given gifts and talents that I have naturally. And I just wanted to give a bit of hope because, you know, Sister Lucille said earlier that, you know, a lot of this comes from a place of fear, but God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So what my point today is about encouragement. Look inside yourself, empower yourself. What is it that you can do? I know there's people that are losing their jobs left, right, and center. They have mortgages to pay. They have children looking to them for everything. I'm not for 1 minute overlooking that or skating around it. This is a wonderful platform that people genuinely are putting themselves out to help. Now, my question is, I have been in recovery for the past 5 years, and by God's grace and mercy, I've listened to many health professionals who were not able to help me with my condition, and I was able to go to a health sanitarium, and I met a wonderful couple from Scotland, and they're part of the medical missionary group. I then sought help with my medical condition, and off the back of that, I've retrained as a medical missionary. And God has placed me in the right place at the right time amongst like-minded people. Now, my question is, I've spoken to Andre, which was one of the professionals that was on the last Zoom, and I've also spoken to Laverne. And basically what it is for me is I'm trying to place myself, by God's grace, in a position where I can help people in the community. And I'm looking to join up with other health professionals, medical missionaries that could use me to help them in their communities. But as coming from a medical missionary background, wanting to connect with other like-minded people, it needs some sort of network, it needs some sort of database. And I'm wondering if, I know when I spoke to Laverne and I spoke to Andre, they alluded to the fact that AH reformers were considering something like this. But my thing is, I'm here, I'm available, I'm ready to change my outlook on life in preparation for our heavenward bound journey. Even though we're still in this world and we're still in the world of sin, but we have to work around people. So the more that we empower ourselves through God's grace and mercy, the more powerful we will be, and the more we will be able to help our community. So I'm just saying, take courage, be encouraged, give hope to people that are not in, that do not have these platforms, and let's see what we can do to really empower ourselves. And I'm available to be on any sort of register or for somebody to join up with me to say, look, there's a medical missionary in North London, or there's one in South London, there's an elderly person that needs assistance. So yeah, I'm just saying that, is there some sort of platform now that we're going forward, that we've come to the point now where there's legal battles that seems to be able to go forward to help the people that are losing their jobs? Because I don't believe for a minute that all of these thousands upon thousands of NHS workers will be sacked, because who's going to run the NHS? And that is the fear mongering that these so-called lawmakers, which are now appearing to be lawbreakers, are putting into us. And I just wanted to encourage everybody that God is able. Pray and ask God for divine intervention to use your gifts and talents which he has naturally placed in you, and ask God to fulfill your purpose according to his will.
Thank you.
And I just thank you so much for this wonderful platform, and bless you as you go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Zalika, and congratulations on your testimony. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and we are very we're humbled by your words of encouragement, and also you're looking for a platform while you're on it. So I would suggest that if you could just email the ahreformers@gmail.com, and we're more than happy to consider your membership. Okay, so I hope that your response has been answered, and thank you for your statement. I'm now going to go on to, thank you. I'm now going to go on to Judith. Judith, please, if you're still here,
yes,
unmute yourself and ask your question.
No, it's not so much a question. Sorry about this. My voice is really bad today. What I want to ask Joan is this platform only for NHS? Because what I did, I had invited a few other people onto it. Unfortunately, they couldn't ask questions. One of them was my brother, but he just wanted to know. Now he's a paramedic, but and also he's not in this country, because it is abroad, yeah. So I just want to ask Sister, is it Louise? Anyway, this is Lucy. I just want to know if people are having this problem, because this is a situation happening abroad also, where if they don't want to take the job, they're being threatened of losing the job. Is there any other how can they get help? Sorry, I'm just asking on behalf of them, one. And two, with our platform here, Sister Joan, some of the people, unfortunately, they come in a bit late. They said to me, you would be letting us know when we'll have something like this again, because in my situation, unfortunately, I all what I'm hearing now, I wish I heard it 5-6 years ago, because I had to make a decision where it is affecting me now, financially all around. But even though I am being affected, I still am willing to help others who is in this situation now, that they can get the information. But it's unfortunate I can't do anything now. But yeah, those are the questions. I hope I get it. Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking the question about someone who is a paramedic and they're abroad, but it's affecting them, and what recourse do they have?
Yeah. No, not only just a paramedic, but does our platform here, does it only deal with medical people, or it is for anyone of any other, in any other
profession?
Yes.
Well, we're here to help anyone who is going through the crisis that is taking place right now, Judith. That is what we're doing. So if you're asking about other walks of life, depending on their career path, Lucille, I believe that we are not going to not guide them. But yes, we are mostly talking about people who are in the healthcare services, and he's a paramedic. That's health that can be counted as healthcare frontline workers.
So in terms of you were saying how we can help your relative who's overseas, we are focusing on the United Kingdom, because we recognize in the United Kingdom we haven't got as many how would I call it, people who are working in medical missionary fields who are using the skills and their knowledge to work in a different way, doing God's business. So if you look back on some of the other conferences, the first two conferences, we set the scene about where we were coming from. We set the scene and recognized that the UK is a mission field, and that in other parts of the world, they have so many different sort of health facilities and medical missionaries who are doing the work. But within the UK, we don't have the same infrastructure. And what we want to do is develop the infrastructure within the UK. Now, if we're looking at your particular, your relative, you said is a paramedic. We did talk about some of the other organizations. Now, most across the world, you have Australia, you have America, all of them are imposing these mandates. And there's some principles that you can take from this presentation and share with your relative. You know, so for instance, there were two notices that I shared with you. There are many other notices. One was tailored for the UK. The other one was a generic one that had references from America, had references from Australia as well. So you could use that notice, and your relative could use it in their particular situation. And the reference had links as well to the human rights acts across different parts of the world as well. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of your relative, think about the principles from this discussion, from this platform, this workshop, that your relative can take and incorporate in his particular situation. I don't know if Kwame wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, well said, Lucille. Besides, the law is universal, so it applies across borders, and the fact is what they are doing is unlawful. So it would be for your relative, I mean, whichever country he's in, to look at the international law and see how it applies to him and the discrimination or disadvantage that he's faced with, and stand on those rights that international law provides. Does that answer your question?
Judith, has that answered your question?
You mute me, I can't answer, Jonah.
No, you're actually unmuted. Has that answered your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. But it wasn't just about the paramedics, but you know, it was not only my relatives, sorry, it have other people also. But thank you very much. At least I can relay that back to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith.
If it helps any at all, may I add that we have assisted people both in, not both, in Jamaica, in America, and here who are faced with the same issues.
Good.
So this
Thank you very much.
Spans borders.
Thank you very much, Kwame. So that brings us now to, I think we have gone over time here, just after 6 o'clock. And what we wanted to say to all of you, I'm just asking my colleagues, my panelist colleagues, if you want to say a final word before we sign off. Laverne, Kwame, Lucille, any final words before we sign off?
I would like to say that you are not on the defensive, you are on the offensive. And do not be afraid. God hasn't given you a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. Going through this situation, be gracious as a Christian.
Amen. Sharon, you have your hand up.
Yes, sorry. I was just going to recommend to the previous person that asked the question that she could get her, or recommend her friends to watch part 1 and part 2.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharon. Laverne, Kwame, any final words before we sign off?
I would like to add some encouragement to those that have been listening today. I do feel like Zalika, that they will have to do a U-turn on this. This is not the mark of the beast, so we're not at that point yet where it's the time of trouble. But I think it is a test in The Great Controversy, chapter 39, Sister White does say the time of trouble such as never was is soon to open upon us, and we shall need an experience which we do not now possess. And I do believe this is the experience that God is giving us to show us how we will react under pressure. And for those of us that can allow God to take them through the fire, as he did with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you will find at the end, he will come through for you. But even if he doesn't, just like the 3 Hebrew worthies, we will not accept whatever's being mandated. And just a little bit of tongue in cheek, I was watching a video where someone was using an excuse as being trans-vaxxed. You know, we're hearing a lot about transgenders, you know, trans men, trans women. And what he was saying, that you could say to your employer that you are trans-vaxxed. You were not born vaccinated, but you do identify as being vaccinated, even though you were born unvaccinated. So try that as tongue in cheek, you know, tell them you are trans-vaxxed. It works for every other ridiculous thing that people come up with. So try and see if that one will work as well. But I wish you all the best of luck. And as Jonas just said, and Lucille, do not worry. Fear is of the devil, okay? And if we truly trust in God, we have to have that holy boldness that he will come through for us in the end.
Amen. Thank you very much, Laverne. And Kwame, Brother Coy.
Yeah, I may just say, see, if we search the annals of time, we will realize that the powers that be has been consistent. They rely on ignorance, fear, divide and conquer. Throughout history, we have seen it. And God tells us that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now, in the age of information, we have got the knowledge. It is for us to act upon that knowledge and to stand on it. And once we know our rights, remember, a man or woman standing on his rights harm no one. And that's all we are doing. We will not give in to fear. We will not give in to tyranny, because the only thing it takes for evil to persist is for good men to stand by and do nothing. And we're not going to do that.
No,
we
we're not.
are going to act. As Lucille says, we are on the offensive. No retreat.
Thank you.
No surrender.
Amen. Thank you very much. You know, I'm getting hands coming up again, and unfortunately, we have really reached the end of this program. But I have to say that it looks as if we're going to have to. What do you say, Lucille, Kwame, and Laverne? We keep saying this, but it looks as if there isn't going to be a part 4. But one thing. I know. But one thing I can say is I want to thank you all for joining us. You know, we've still got quite a number of you on this platform, and it just shows how much this has affected so many people. And someone said it's one point to say you're going to help, but it's actually doing it. And the fact is, we at the Association of Health Reformers, we are determined to make sure that we try to display Christ in everything we do, which means we do not ignore situations where our brothers and sisters are suffering, where they feel as if their backs are against the wall, where they feel they do not have a voice. And shame on me and shame on us if we try to ignore it and turn our backs, because it's about religious liberty and health and freedom of conscience. And none of us can stand by and watch someone else fall. It is our duty to help, and we have been more than happy. In fact, we're humbled at the fact that so many have joined us, and that you have actually hung on to what we're actually saying, which is a guide. We will be placing the templates on the website. The Zoom recording will be made available. To those people who'd like to pass it on to. We do ask for, because we are a not-for-profit organization, we do ask for any size donation. If you can even afford £1 for it, please, every little helps. Please try to give us some sort of a donation so we can continue these types of programs. I said £1, hopefully it's more than £1. But please try to donate something so we can pass these recordings on to you. It is valuable information in there. As promised, we will put Brother Kwame in touch with those of you who would like to get in touch, and we will be putting the information on the website. So it leaves me with nothing further to say except, Lucille, can you close us out in prayer? I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Brother Kwame. I want to thank you, Sister Laverne. I know that Brother Andre is also on. We will be planning something in the near future, which will be Religious Liberty and Health Weekend. That is what we're planning, so that anyone can come on and we can share the gospel of health and religious liberty with our people out there. So, Sister Lucille, please close us out in prayer, and then I will be ending the meeting. Thank you.
The Heavenly Father, thank you once again for your goodness, your mercy, and your grace to each one of us. I thank you, Father, that you have sent your Holy Spirit to be in this workshop there, Lord. I thank you for each of the people who are working to support your children there, Lord. You know each one that is on this platform, and you know the challenges that they are facing there, Lord. But there, Lord, we know that you can be glorified through these challenges. And some, Father, may choose to be redeployed, and some may choose to resign, some may choose to take early retirement, some, their Father, may even choose to take the jab. But there, Father, we know that you are a God of love and you do not force anyone. So, Father, I pray that you be with each one now, that you continue to lead and guide them in their decision making, and that they put you first in all things. Until we meet again, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Lucille. ahreformers.com, the information will be there. ahreformers@gmail.com. Please feel free to email us. And please look out for the Association of Health Reformers Religious Liberty and Health Weekend. God bless you all. It's been our pleasure to serve you. And please, if you've got any questions, please email us at hreformers@gmail.com. God bless you and have a blessed week, all of you. Thank you.